Hi, and welcome back to Hope Spring Conversation. And I'm Hazel, and I'm here with Sylvia.
Hi,
And hi, Sylvia, how are you today?
great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Just did a walk in the forest with my friend and his dog, who's quite greedy. So I had to like keep my sandwich away from him. So how's your morning been so far?
I'm not too bad. Busy, but good. It's quite
Yeah.
raining in Ireland today,
Oh,
so the
oh,
weather has
that's
changed.
Oh wow, it's a bit warmer here. And I was surprised at how many people were in the park today, children, quite early. I thought, where are these children coming from? But obviously it's a bank holiday weekend over here. So that's why. So today's topic is being independent in a relationship. And we're going to cover a few topics, but I think we wanted to maybe spend some time on having financial independence. So how do you feel about the topic today?
I think it's important to talk about it because there is a little bit of the confusion, especially many people will think, okay, independent woman, she's a feminist, aggressive, there's a
Mm.
lot of negative um, thoughts around that. So I think it's good to grab that topic and go through it.
Yeah, I agree. And it was interesting. I was telling my friend Chris, I think he's in his 70s, about the topic today. And I was just wanting to pick his brain because he's from a different generation. And yeah, I think it's kind of, we were talking about his, I think his parents' generation, where in couple, for example, he was telling me a story about someone in Wales or Welsh woman. I don't know if that's true or not in that time who the men will come do the work and then will bring home the money to their wives and then she will put it in different tins. So that would be tin for food, a tin for drinks, tin for savings, insurance. And so she was the one who was managing all the finance. And I said, actually, that's what my mom and dad did. He
Mm.
went out, he worked hard, and he trusted her completely, totally to take care of the money and look after the family. But I know we're not just talking about money, but that was just an example of kind of how that role was used.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess I'm kind of thinking when we think about being independent in a relationship, what for you, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think like having the agreements first of
Hmm.
like, what we have together and what is separate first.
Hmm.
It is very important just because we are not really thought about that when we are young. We're
Hmm.
coming in the relationship, we're not expressing our desires, how we want that relationship and those agreements look like. And further down the line, after a few years, there's anger, resentment, just because the person didn't fulfill our expectations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
So,
think so. And I like that, and I think for me it's still evolving, but I like the idea of having that freedom within a relationship. Because some people have the idea that if you're together, you have to do everything together, you have to just have everything in common, the same values, etc. But I see it differently. I think you do have to have common values around certain things, but you can also have your independence where you're able to spend time with your friends, visit your family, or just have hobbies, or have your own job or business, whatever, and still come back together to do certain things. They may be like, have a meal together, go on a walk together. So for me, I personally function better when I have my independence and I know I can just go off and do what I want, but also be able to communicate with the person to say, like, I know, like to do joint things together. And I remember when I was younger, I used to always say to my mom then, how is it that you're in this relationship for so long? And my dad obviously passed away recently, but they were together for 60 years.
wow.
And I remember as a teenager saying to her, how could you live with the same person for so long? It's like being in a prison. Because I think something in my head said that I I needed to have something different, but I didn't know what that was. And of course, they did their own things. My mom was in the choir. She was in like the village. She was village community activities. Daddy did his own stuff. He went hunting, etc. But I think very early on, I knew that independence was important for me. So I don't know how that was formed, but I think it still kind of forms the way I am today.
Mhm.
And I guess, as you said, some women or men listening to this, they may be thinking that, oh, we're too feminist, we're too this. And yes, it does. It may not fit for everybody having that independence, because some people like kind of having taken on that, the maybe I wouldn't say passive role, but having someone in charge, having someone leading. But my experience of I think what kind of influenced me, one of the things was years ago reading this article in one of the major newspaper about women who were in their 50s and 60s, and either they were divorced or their husband died, and then they were left with nothing because
Yeah.
they didn't know where the bank accounts were, they didn't know where the will was, they didn't know um, just simple things like how to make decisions. So that really made me aware that we've got to have a different mindset, because if we're depending on one person, it could be a man or a woman, to make those decisions. What if there's a crisis? How are we going to cope if something happens?
Hmm.
What's your view on that?
Yeah, I do believe that we need to be prepared for
Hmm.
unexpected, especially financially.
Hmm.
It is very important. Like I saw that for um, my mom when my dad died a few years ago, um, just because she had a job herself and she was quite independent, it didn't really it didn't really bring her down that much.
Hmm.
So obviously it's always a shock. You kind of feel
Hmm.
like you are alone, but she had that's something that kept her going, which is very important in my opinion. And
Yeah, yeah.
the good thing is, like, my parents were never that secretive about money, so they
Hmm.
had joint accounts. And once my dad passed away, it could be easy to kind of like, you know sustain the operation. let's say
Hmm.
let's say this way, where, like, I know it's a tragedy sometimes. People have separate accounts, they don't even get that other person in their life, like the spouse, they're not making them aware, and then all of
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
sudden, things are going back, because, like, this is the thing, like, we are never able to say when we're gonna die. It can happen any minute.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
um
an illness, or even when someone gets really ill. Not that we're
exactly.
pushing illness on anyone, but it happens sometimes.
Hmm. And it's not like, yeah, to have, like, detailed plan, but just
Hmm.
to have an access, so you're not left without nothing at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. I think so, and I, I like the idea of kind of sharing, but also having some privacy. I always remember when I was young, my sisters and I, when we went out, mommy would always say, even when we weren't dating, um, she'd say, if you go out, always have, she say, your Vex money. And Vex money, I don't know if you know what Vex is, but Vex as in, if you fell out with your boyfriend, if he took you on a date and you fell out with him, um, you need to have some emergency money to
Mm-mm.
get back home. So I always say the same thing to my daughters as well. When you go out with friends or whatever, it doesn't have to be a boyfriend. If you go out with your friend, always have your own plan how to get back, because that's, to me, she was preparing us for independence in that way. And so I like that idea of having that independence. And the same friend I was talking about, I mean, he's not going through a separation, which is sad at that age. But what he was saying about is in terms of now they have to go through, as they're selling their home, they've lived together for 20 something years. They have to now be thinking about, selling the house, dividing the money, making decisions about where to live, etc. They hadn't planned to do that. They thought that they were in love and they would be together forever. So, and when you get to that stage, I think it's probably more even more serious for people in that stage, that it's hard to make change, and it's hard to be independent, but you have to start thinking again of independence. So in a way, they were lucky that they were able to have a financial security, but also have that communication between them where they can sit down and decide, even if things are difficult in the relationship, so that
Mhm.
this is where what I need to do, this is where I'm going to live. So I think it's important to have that communication from the beginning about when we get into a relationship, kind of, what are my likes, what are my dislikes, what works for me, etc. Um, yeah, so I don't know where I'm going with that, but I was just thinking about that sense of independence, having a voice of your own, having uh, kind of a mindset, having a clear vision of kind of what would happen if something was to happen to one of us.
Mhm.
Do you know where the bank account is? Do you know where the will is? Do you
Yeah.
know where things are? So just practical things I think would be useful to talk about as well.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, it is important. And as you said, I do believe, like, it should be from the start, like the agreements. Okay, what is our joint spending?
Hmm.
What is my separate thing? And that's okay. Like, I don't think that there's something wrong with it. But again, like, we should really talk about it. I think, like, we are raised to believe that money should be secret.
Hmm.
um, it's always like secret if you never talk about how much you earn, how much you spend. It's all you know a
Hmm.
gray area, which in a relationship it could be a huge problem. And I see that many times that it brings the relationship down.
In what way? Give me an
um,
example. Hmm.
just because, like, if you feel that you know you kind of, like, as a woman or as a man, you can feel that you are not being trusted,
Mm.
and this is where the problems start. So it might appear to you that your husband or wife have secrets they not sharing, and obviously that
Yes.
trust is being broken, the suspicion is increasing, and then yeah, it's very easy to fall into this place. And yeah, and very very often the relationship can break up because of that.
Yeah. I've seen the opposite where there is issues around control, where one person, and this is not to bash men, but generally in the examples that I've seen, it's the man who's the main breadwinner. The woman might be the person who's staying at home, or maybe having a job where it's only a part-time job, so she's not earning
Mhm.
as much. And so there's control in terms of where that person is kind of, it's like dangling the carrot saying, oh, I'm not going to do this for you, or I'm not going to do this favor for you, or having expectations, like, criticizing his partner or whoever the case are. What have you been doing all day? I'm
Yeah,
going out, I'm working hard.
yeah,
What's you doing? So in that way, I think that's why it's important to have independence, even if you're not working, but your husband or partner who is giving you money, maybe putting aside a little bit of money to be able to have that sense of financial freedom. So if you wanted to go out with your friends for coffee, you can go out without feeling guilty for
yeah,
spending. Because I've seen where women have to ask permission, to go out just with their friends, to spend the money, or just even to take the kids out, sometimes to buy something for the children. They have to account for everything. So maybe that's where the lack of trust is, but also lack of, where one person is being resentful because they're making most of the money, and then they're using that as a bargaining tool
hmm
to keep the person in control. Um, so that's not good. And also the other extreme is that where sometimes that person is left, that person might move on to another relationship and leave that one person without any security. So it's so important not to expect that, even if that's the decision you made in a couple relationship, you should also be able to say, okay, if this happens, what would be the security for me?
yeah,
not that we're saying that we're gonna ever divorce or separate, but if we did, what's the plan? Who's going to be providing? What do we need to do? So all those things I think is important to have, as you said, go into those conversations from the very beginning.
Mhm.
Um, and I think as a mother, I think for my daughters, like my daughters are quite independent, and yes, I want them to have relationships, but I've always sort of brought them up. In fact, they're probably more independent than I am, to kind of make those decisions for themselves right now. And even if, for example, they decided that if they got married and had children that they wanted, like that's their choice to stay at home, but still have that independence where they have to have an education,
Mm.
they have to be able to build themselves where they already start saving in their own independent life, and they're having plans that maybe one day they'll buy a property they could afford it, so they've got that mindset that that's what I'm going to do with or without a relationship. Whereas some people might just be waiting for that savior, someone to save them and rescue them, that this person's
Yeah.
gonna look after them. So I think sometimes that's where people get trapped in relationships.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think like whenever you were saying something about that dependency, it is
Hmm.
very important to bring up to our viewers attention the respect that independency brings in the relationship.
Yes.
This is, it's not a rocket science. Like if you see someone who constantly depend on you on everything, after a while, even if they were the most attractive person in the world,
Yeah.
you lose that respect.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it is important to have something on the side just to kind of like keep that sparkle in the relationship itself.
Mm-hmm. What? Tell me a bit more. What did you mean by that? I think I understand, but when this is something on the side, you mean in terms of finance or just like your that little part of you independent? What did you mean?
Yeah, like for everyone it looks differently, and
Mm-hmm.
it's different on stage of your life as well, because obviously like as for women it could be like they cannot do certain things because they stay at home moms or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
still they can have social life, for example, or as you said, hobby or whatever, and that makes them more attractive because at, I don't know, 5 o'clock every Tuesday they're like, bye, I'm going out, and then
Yeah.
get their partner to miss them during that time where they
Yeah.
away, when
Yeah.
you are constantly at your territory, the same territory all the time. Obviously, that's and you're kind of like at that service level, because we like you know keep people happy. So we have that in nature. Oh, I'll bring you this, I'll bring you that, and then
Yes.
after a while,
Yeah.
it's kind of like
Yes, I see what you mean. It's to just keep that intrigue and relevance. So independence is not just about money, but also um I kind of how I understand is that when you meet someone, you're at your best, you want to look the best, you want to look after yourself,
yeah,
your makeup, you're happy, you're bubbly, and then when you get too comfortable, you go back to like this sort of kind of staleness where you're too comfortable. Now you're wearing um pajamas all day long, or
yeah,
your hair isn't combed, or you're just looking um just like you're neglecting yourself. Really, it's not about the partner. You're starting to neglect yourself because you think, oh, I'm in the right relationship now, I'm happy, I can let go.
mm,
But you have to still stay relevant in yourself, and you're not doing it for him or her.
just for
You're yourself, your self-esteem, because when you look after yourself and when you care for yourself, you're really saying that I matter. And also you want that person to be attractive to you, want it to be intriguing. And yes, I think going out with your friends and or hobby, also you have, when you come back home, you've got something to talk about,
yeah, exactly.
you have
And
something interesting to share. Yes.
yeah, I've heard it so many times from young women. They were like, "Oh, now I'm married, so I can be fat or whatever."
Hmm.
Um, you're not doing that for your husband. Like, don't go to the gym or don't look
Hmm.
after yourself for him, because he might be gone anytime. You
Hmm.
never know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you lose all your confidence. And this is the thing, like I always say, okay, it's not like that our the way we look like, our exterior should really um, predict our total confidence, but it
Mm-hmm.
has a huge impact
Yeah.
how we look like. Then you kind of like, it's like the wheel. If we don't put too much effort, then we feel crap. And it's the other way around as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, I'm always thinking about that. It's like, and I wish I had the quote. I wrote this down last night from Ian Van Zandt, and she was working with women in her program, and they came thinking that they were coming to talk about relationship, but actually, what she was saying to them is that your biggest relationship is with yourself first. And she said something about who you show up in as a relationship. If you didn't show up with your full self, what the person falls in love with or sees is that part of you, and then they're going to be disappointed as they get to know you over time, that actually that's like I've been shortchanged.
yeah.
So I think if you shop looking perfect and happy and together, and actually you're not reflecting that's where the relationship might things might go wrong. So I suppose it's something about begin as you start. If you started out, someone who was looking after yourself, someone who was independent, how did you cope before this person came in your life? That's probably the question, isn't it?
Hmm.
So you should be able to still be that person and more in a relationship. So with or without a relationship, who are you?
Hmm.
And if you're able to be happy and independent and have joy and just still look after yourself and have relationships with friends, and you're connected to other people, you've got hobbies and career, you should be still that same person in a relationship. You
Hmm.
shouldn't put that on hold. So I guess that's what it means to me. That me, the person who's single, should also be me, the person who's in a relationship. Although there may be a few compromises along the way.
Yeah. um I think we need to kind of like wrap up, but as a wrap,
Yes.
I would like to kind of maybe a little bit mention about this extreme independence.
Yeah. I like that extreme independence.
Because
Like the extreme sports.
I see that all the time, and this is where people
Mm-hmm.
are failing creating relationships too, because
Mm-hmm.
they are like, "Oh, I'll do it myself. Oh, I'll pay for myself." They're not letting that other person
Mm.
to
Yeah.
share little bit of them. Just to I don't know,
Yeah.
purchase a meal or do this or that. It shouldn't be that way too. So like, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I have this conversation with my daughters constantly about dating, because I would say to them when I was dating, like kind of how I was brought up, like in some of my generation, the men then like to be the one who pays the bill, who takes you out. And they were like, oh, mom, that's not fair, and it should be 50-50, but it's a generational thing. But a classic example is this one when I went with my friend Chris. He invites me to go walking with the dog, and for him, his company, probably because he's going through his separation, and he probably he's like to have that conversation and that chat. So what he says to me, I'll buy you breakfast. And today I thought, okay, maybe it's the second time we've done it. I'll treat him today. So I took out my money, and he said to me, I said, I'll buy you breakfast. And I was going to them. I thought, no, actually, let me not make a big deal about it, because for him, that's important for him to be able to, buy me breakfast. And I think that's a classic example. If I was that independent, which I found I've done in the past, like I can pay for myself. It's actually that's the extreme, because this person actually feels like he's giving you something by paying for you, by buying you a breakfast. And I had to step back and think, well, I need to honor that he feels happy buying me a breakfast, and I don't need to argue and try and compete and say I can pay for you.
Yeah, 100% agree with on that. Yeah, you know, I think it's a lot to do about it. It's about the experience we have in life.
Hmm.
That we because like I was raised to be super independent, and my mom was always
Hmm.
like, "I do it myself."
Ah, yeah.
um, and I think like a lot of Polish women, they are very much like that.
Yeah.
Where with life, I actually learned, okay, I have to let that person
Mm,
in the relationship kind of like let them do things as well,
mm, mm.
let them letting them to take care of me sometimes. I don't know,
Yeah.
cook for me or do the shopping or do this or that. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. It's a good thing. And sometimes I think women are worse for it because we want to do everything and then we complain
yes,
when we do everything and like, oh, we're resentful. So we need to be very careful to be open to receive and to accept help as well.
exactly. Yeah.
So we're sort of rounding up now, and I'm wondering if you've got any like, I know you've just given that, but any tips, any quick tip, in terms of, or maybe just a summary of how to maintain our your independence or be independent in relationship.
I think
I'm
it's
putting
just
you on the spot, am I?
okay. I think it's yeah, having those conversation and be honest about it. Like, what do you want in the relationship? Because obviously, our relationships are very fluid. They
Yeah.
not to stay the same. So even though, like, just because I want this at that current moment, maybe in a year time I want something different. But
Hmm.
I do believe it's very important to talk about it and find this common ground. And yeah, like not maybe compromise too much. Being
Mm.
that kind of independent, but trying to find the common ground.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And yes, really, it goes back to being clear about who you are, what you want, and maybe you're trying to be clear about what you think a relationship is. And as Jan Van Zen says, you need to be in a relationship first with yourself before you're in one with others. And if you can be independent in your own right, then you're able to do that in a relationship and still have companionship and yeah, and communication, so it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be extreme one way or the other.
Yeah, definitely.
Gosh, so it's been great as well again to have this chat, and thanks again to everyone who's been giving us feedback and liking our video and leaving comments. So we just want to encourage people to continue to do that and to share and yeah, continue to give us feedback. And if you have any topics that you want us to cover, please get in touch. We also say that we're running a workshop. I can't remember the date,
Uh,
on mental health and well-being,
11th of May.
11th of May. So if people want to sign up for that, they can do so.
Yeah,
And we could probably put the link.
I'll put the link in the comments.
All
So
right.
it's gonna be around stress at work.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yeah.
is a little bit different topic to what usually we discuss here. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously we don't. It's like with the body, you don't take only a hand; it's the whole thing. So in order to make yourself well, you need to look into different parts: work, personal life. So that's why we are trying to look through like a comprehensive point of view and not focus
And
on
this, yes, and this workshop is free.
exact.
It's a half an hour lunch and learn workshop. So we'll look forward to seeing you there if you can make it as well.
Definitely.
Thanks again and see you next time.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Sylvia.
Bye bye.